This is Meet the Attorney, and I have a special episode for you today. I'm going to introduce you to a gentleman that I was very, very impressed with. I got to tell you, and the power word of this Meet the Attorney episode is empathy. You know exactly what I mean once you get into the show. So let's just get into it.
Hello and welcome to Marketing Solutions for Local Law Firms, the podcast that provides you with all the latest digital marketing tools, tips, and strategies you will need to implement in order to stay ahead of your competition. If you are looking to substantially increase your caseload in the next 6 months, this is the podcast for you. And now, here's the host of our show, the local business guy himself, Frank Deming.
Hello, everyone. This is Frank Deming, the local business guy, and welcome to another episode of Marketing Solutions for Local Law Firms. Happy Wednesday. Happy Hump Day, everyone. I hope you guys are having a rockin' week thus far. Today is Meet the Attorney, and I have a wonderful guest for you today. I mean, we've talked about everything on this show, but we've never interviewed someone who actually does everything. That's until today. Because I have on the other side of this microphone, the great Duane Light. How's it going, Duane?
Good. How are you?
I am doing super. Duane, in the pre-intro, I always pre-record something before we, air the show. And I said some things about you already. But in your own words, tell the audience, who are you and what do you do?
Okay, I'm an attorney in Northern California. I've been an attorney for about 30 years. And in my life in general, I've had just a really beautiful spiritual life. I lived in Asia for 5 years, a lot of meditation retreats, etc. So when I came to practicing law, it was already with a more, I call myself a holistic lawyer, but with a more personal, emotionally intelligent, and I found to be a very effective approach. So anyway, over the years, I like to practice in different areas. I wanted to be general counsel for people who are more conscious, more holistic, more caring, more compassionate. So I practiced in most areas of civil law and also helped friends with a few criminal cases.
Mm. Now, is it just you, Duane, or you have a team? Or?
It's just me. I get support when I need it. If I have a trial or something serious litigation, I'll hire a paralegal. And I get some office help now and then, but mainly me.
So for 30 years, it's just been you. That's amazing.
Oh, well, I started off with a small law firm in Northern California for a few years and then went out on my own.
Awesome. Yeah, a lot of attorneys do that. That's a great success story, and you've maintained and you basically take care of everything. I mean, you right before we hit record, you were sharing with me, you've done family law, criminal law, the whole 9 yards. It's such an odd thing because most of the times when I interview someone on this show, they specialize in something, estate planning, IP, intellectual property, something. But you basically run everything, soup to nuts, and you still look sane. So that's a testament.
Well, it does take extra time because whenever I take on a case in a new area, I'll either bring in an attorney who's experienced in that area, or if it's a fairly simple thing, I just do the research and get up to speed myself. So it takes a little extra time, but it keeps law more interesting for me, and I can serve my clients in a variety of ways.
It's something that you're passionate about. That's awesome. So today we have an interesting topic, folks. The topic of today's show is the power of empathy law, and I have a couple of empathy in law. Excuse me. I have a couple of questions. But before we get to a list of the questions, What do you mean by empathy in the law?
Empathy is mainly having some concern for the person on the other end of the case or the other end of the phone. I have great case examples where just one kind statement turns a case, resolves a case. And I can give you case examples if you'd like.
Sure.
Okay. Well, one of my early ones was I had a friend who was receiving calls and letters from the IRS, and she was just terrified. She didn't want to deal with it. She called me up, wanted me to deal with it, and I said, "Well, let me train you on how to deal with this, and how to resolve it." So I taught her to treat the IRS agent as a friend. I told her that the IRS is one of the worst places to work. The average turnover is 9 months. It's heavily bureaucratic and top down and controlling, kind of a mean atmosphere. So, and 95% of people that show up on the phone with them are dishonest, evasive, angry, whatever. So when somebody shows up and they're just a nice person and friendly, kindness evokes kindness. Kindness is contagious. All emotions are contagious. So I coached her up in this. She called the guy and just had this attitude of a friend in the making, and spoke to him in just a nice way and asked how he was doing. And he ended up writing off her whole tax debt.
I didn't realize they had the power of doing that.
Oh, yeah.
I thought once you owe, you owe.
Yeah, he was running the numbers and stuff, and her situation and her finances and her story and all that. And usually they want lots of documents and paperwork for that kind of stuff, but he just wrote it off. So I have many other stories like that. I'll briefly tell another one. I came into a case, trial was coming up. I was hired like 3 weeks before the trial. So I spent a weekend going through all the, 2 boxes of documents, depositions, etc. It was a really bitter litigation between 2 women who had been close friends for years. And then one wanted to renovate an office building and the other gave her a few $100,000 to do it. And the project just crashed. It was mismanaged. And then 2008, the real estate crash hit and the whole thing fell apart. Right. So the other person sued my client. And looking through the depositions, I saw that this other person was a nurse and that she had started a nonprofit to give health services to people who didn't have money. So the day before trial, I emailed her attorney and I said, I just saw that your client has this wonderful nonprofit project serving people, and it'd be nice to resolve this case so she could get back to her wonderful work. And he emailed me right back, "This is great. Let me get back to you." So we show up for trial the next morning. The judge comes in, and of course he wants to give us another half hour to try to settle the case. And this woman walks across the courtroom, leaves her attorney, and comes over to me. This doesn't happen in court, right? You're on each side with your clients. She walks up to me and she says, "Mr. Light, I believe you're an honorable person, and because you're here, I'm willing to talk about settling this case." 20 minutes later, we had it done. So just that little bit of empathy. You see, lawyers are trained. It's drilled into us in law school that your loyalty is to your client and you do everything for your client. And it's a fight in there and it's a battle. And this is what leads attorneys to be very combative and attacking and negative and, tearing the other person down and all this. So judges don't like that. Judges want, when 2 people are battling it out like that and they're exaggerating, they're making things up, they're evasive, etc., the judge doesn't know who to trust and they don't like it. So when me or my client show up and we're calm and we're honest and humble and we're not attacking and we even give a couple points to the other side, it just melts things in the courtroom. The judge immediately knows who to trust. I've been in trials where after a couple rounds of this, where the other attorney is all over the place, trying any argument that might fit, and I'm just solid, and here's the evidence, and here's the documents, this is what happened. Boom, the judge knows who to trust. I've had these situations where I catch the judge's eye, and I just know we've won. It's like a light comes into the courtroom.
I found that interesting because Okay, so most judges, if not all, correct me if I'm wrong, were lawyers at some point, correct?
Yes.
So if you're a lawyer, that's the nature.
Well, when you're a judge, it's different. When you're a lawyer, you're representing one client. But when I walk into a situation, I feel like I'm holding everybody. I'm holding good for everyone, right? Even the other person. And that comes across. It comes across in my voice. I'll drop a comment. I'll write something. It's just being respectful and honoring to everybody in the room, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's very unusual. And when you're a judge, you're not advocating for everybody. You're up there and you're listening to two sides and going, who do I trust? Who do I believe? Who do I want to win? They want the nice, trustworthy, honest, humble person to win, right? Yeah, so it's incredibly powerful. Kindness, empathy is not a weakness. It's a superpower.
It's a superpower. It's a strength. Interesting. Never heard that. I've been working with lawyers now for 4.5 years or so. Never heard that. Never heard that strategy. That's interesting. Maybe you should patent it or something.
Well, there are a few books out there on holistic law and how to be a holistic lawyer. And actually, law is moving in that way in general. There's more and more emphasis on mediation, negotiation, collaborative divorces. So especially in the family law area, there are many attorneys who also have a degree in counseling.
Yeah, you have to.
And in criminal law, there's this move towards restorative justice, which is where you look to the ultimate is to bring the victim and the perpetrator together and meet, and the victim tells the perpetrator, this is after a process, right? Mm-hmm. Tells the perpetrator what that felt like to have their home broken into and their family mementos stolen or whatever happened, or to be injured, and the other person who committed the wrong tries to do something to make it right. So there is this movement toward more compassion in the law. There's meditation being taught in many law schools now, for example.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because a lot of the, family law attorneys that I work with, a lot of them have a whole division on mediation and all of this stuff. And I think most of them take some kind of meditation for it, or I don't know. It's I've heard so many different stories about that because it's becoming more popular.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
but I didn't, you know what it is? I didn't tie it with what you do though. Mm-hmm. I'm seeing the tie now though.
Yeah. So there's this general trend. I'm probably on the forefront or the outlier of how far I go with that. But yeah, there is that general trend toward.
Interesting. So let me ask you this. How do you bring empathy into what is usually like what we talked about, a very combative situation? I mean, it's you got this guy on the other side of you or gal, whoever your opposing counsel is. How do you bring empathy to that?
We'll be back after a quick break.
Hey guys, I hope you guys are enjoying today's content. While I have you on here, I want to introduce you to a promo that we have going on for the spring of 2024 for all legal practices throughout the U.S. I have an outstanding offer that we've never been able to offer before, but we want to do it because you have been an avid listener. We're only promoting this to people who listen to the show. So if you're an attorney and you are an avid listener to the show and you're thinking about possibly opening your own practice, you want to pay attention to this announcement. We are offering a full website with hosting, SSL certificate, online booking service, online appointment management, and more, and much more, with a 1-year maintenance, all for $2,250. That's $2,250 one-time fee, and you have a full-fledged website. If you want to know more about this, just give us a call at 888-416-7752 or send us an email at info@lbmsllc.com. mediation.com. Just make sure that you mentioned that you heard it on the show, and we'll definitely get you that discount. So with that, I'm going to bring you back to the content.
Yeah, for me, it's easy because I've had these decades of, I'm a certified meditation teacher now. I've had decades of my own emotional healing and meditation and learning how to be persuasive in just being a decent person. Basically, being a nice, decent person goes a long way. So I can personally do that. It's pretty natural for me. But when I get a client and they're not sleeping, they're stressed out, they're frustrated, they don't know how to prepare, etc., they're really angry, or there's a lot of emotions around what's happening in the case. So I train them up. This is some of my new work. I train them to use a variety of meditations, emotional clearing work, somatic exercises to get them more calm, breath work, and also reframing their attitude toward judges and courts and the whole legal system. Like if you walk into court and you don't trust court and you think the judge is going to screw you over and you're unhappy and you have a scowl on your face, right? How's that going to come across? People read you in the first 6 seconds, right? That's their impression of you.
That's true.
So if you walk in combative or angry or in this fake power mode, or, they can tell by the tone of voice you're lying, etc., all of that leads to distrust, loss of credibility, right? So I train my clients up to get a good night's sleep the night before, exercise the week before, watch their diet, do things to keep their brain oxygenated, especially with the breath work. When you're stressed, your breathing tightens up and your brain power goes down 20, 30, 40%, right? So all of these little techniques, I train my clients so they can show up and they're calm, they're professional. They've researched the judge. I have my clients go into the courtroom before their hearing or trial and just watch the judge and get a sense of how he or she is and how they work, and know something of their background. If a judge came from a business background, then you want to show up in a businessy way and you want to make businessy arguments, right? If they were more in some other field, a softer field, family law, mediation, whatever, you understand them, and watching them in action, you see how they work and how attorneys work with them. So it's a whole reframing of your mental attitude and your approach, the emotional work, the physical work, etc.
I like that approach. Totally different. So you prepare. I like that. You prepare them to research the judge. Wow, that's a first here on this show. That's awesome.
Yeah, well, if you have a phobia, there's a psychological technique of you expose yourself to what you're afraid of, right? So most people are afraid of courts. So go in there and watch it happen. It calms everything down. And when you walk in, you smile at the judge. You catch their eyes, and you're relaxed, and your posture is good, and you're breathing, and you're present, and you just exude this friendly, nice, believable, trustworthy attitude, right? Because that's the shift. That's the transformation that has to happen, going from fear, anger, stress, depression to calm and confident, centered, grounded, likable, persuasive, right? So you walk in that way, you kind of nod and smile to the judge. You've just made a friend, and you're just real. You're humble. You admit mistakes. You're honest. Very powerful.
Got it. So let me ask you something, because I was thinking, most of the times when the perception anyway, when you say the word attorney or lawyer, you think sharp, harsh, crude, etc. So let's I'm just gonna throw a random question out here. Do people, also maybe other lawyers, maybe opposing counsel, think that you're being weak, like when you talk the way you talk?
That's a great question. When I first came out, when I first came out as a holistic lawyer, my first card had that kind of language on it,
Mm.
and I got some, little joking or snide comments or whatever. But when I get them in court or in a hearing or mediation, I'm good at what I do. And they see how effective it is, and it's a shock to most attorneys, especially if they're used to being in that combative, fight or flight attack mode. And I'm just nice and calm and, straightforward, and they see how I am. And there's a power. I mean, this is not about being disempowered at all. It's about becoming more empowered because you're showing up in a more powerful, persuasive way. And the way you speak is very grounded. Like when people are afraid or when they're evasive, they're lying or whatever, there are tells, right? There are tone of voice tells, looking in their eyes, looking how they hold their body, right? And judges, an experienced judge has seen hundreds of attorneys and witnesses, right? They read you pretty quickly, right? So if you show in and you're just likable and humble and you've got your act together, you know what the legal issues are, the points that you need to make, you're brief, you're persuasive, etc. You make it easy for the judge to rule for you. Another thing I always do too is judges for the most part want to do the right thing. That's their job. They're to figure out who should win here, right?
Right.
So I not only make the legal and factual arguments, I also argue principle. Right? Like a higher principle, this is the right thing to do. And that varies case by case, but in every brief that I write, every trial brief, whatever, I put the why we should win, why this is the right thing to do, so the judge can feel good about ruling in our favor.
Got it.
Another thing, I'll just add this too. A lot of attorneys write in this very old style, legalistic, big words, long sentences way.
Yeah.
And it's just hard to read. You know what I mean? The judge is sitting there wading through this 10 or 20 pages of stuff. So I write in a very conversational, plain English way. I was taught this in my law school. So it's easy to read. It's easy to understand. It just makes it easier on the judge. So for myself, I try to be organized and brief and powerful, and I train my clients to do the same thing.
Wow, that's definitely different. Question for you: I mean, I know you do general counsel, but what is the thing that you love the most? What practice area you love the most, or one or two? It's it doesn't have to be one. It could be two, name three. Off the top of your head.
Oh, okay. So I have one client I've had for 12 years, a wealthy woman who's very active in the world, does a lot of environmental, human rights work, etc. Uses her money that she inherited for good purposes, right? So I just love her as a client, but people with money can attract lawsuits. She has a couple properties, she owns a nonprofit, has staff and tenants in her house and projects. And so anyway, my favorite thing in working with her is I can deal with her emotionally. She's an emotional person, and I can acknowledge her emotions and really hear her and let her know that she's been heard. That is huge with any client, to really be heard and felt and understood. They feel like you're a friend and you're on their side. So with her, I've done major real estate litigation. I do a lot of nonprofit advising. I've helped her with employee stuff, helped with tenant issues. And as I mentioned before, I just bring in a specialist attorney where needed if things are getting gnarly. Another service I do for my clients is help them find an attorney.
Okay.
So when I do the attorney search for them, I can be really quick and focused, right? And I can interview 2 or 3 attorneys. I can negotiate the price down. I've saved my clients tens of thousands of dollars in attorney's fees. And also when an attorney knows another attorney is involved and is kind of watching the case, they're more likely to be careful with their billing. They're more likely not to do frivolous stuff that will just run up legal fees. They're going to be more focused, etc. So that is a valuable service for my clients, being that general counsel where I can oversee their issues and help with just about anything that comes up.
You're like the one-stop shop for attorneys.
One stop, and we bring in some more stops, more attorneys. If more attorneys are needed. Yeah.
So, quick question, like how, going back to the empathy topic, like how can an attorney or just, people in general out there, how can they develop empathy in the midst of all kinds of conflict? Let's say, like, it doesn't have to be in the courtroom. It could be any, because I'm just thinking about this in regular walk of life. You're walking around the street, and you get conflict. How can someone develop empathy in the midst of all kinds of craziness going on in this world?
Yes. So it's mainly an inside job, right? You need to deal with your emotions. What's going on with conflict. There's usually fear and anger are a couple big ones. I've been attacked. I've been wrongly sued. How could they say that? How could they do this? We were married for 20 years. How could they be such an awful person, going through a divorce, etc.? And if you allow those emotions to rule, it's just going to be a cat fight. It's just going to be tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars, right, for litigation. So it's mainly coming to a place where you can feel for the other person. Empathy is feeling and acknowledging and having some concern for what the other person is going through. So when I'm working with a client and they're in a conflict, even if the other side is a complete jerk or whatever, I say, well, this must be hard on them too, or they must be going through stuff, or litigation isn't fun for anybody. I'm sure it's hard on them. I'll just drop comments like that and encourage them to have some compassion for some empathy, some compassion for the other side. So once that is developed, then that can show up in the written word, the spoken word, the actions.
Interesting.
Yeah, I had one.
But you got to really, really practice that, though, right?
It takes some inner work. I had one client who was involved in a divorce, and this time it was the ex-wife, soon-to-be ex-wife, who went off and was really attacking him and making false accusations and came up with all these declarations defaming him and everything. And I told him, just don't go there. Just be fair, be reasonable, don't try for too much. So when they showed up, they had to work with the court directs people to mediation. So they had to work with the mediator, and the mediator writes a report to the judge, right, about how it is with these people. Who's the good parent, who deserves to win here. So already by the time they got to the court hearing on custody and some other issues, the judge already kind of knew him, and then the judge saw that in court. She was just very catty and accusing and attacking and negative, and he was really fair and flexible and about child visitation and where the child was going to stay. He's saying, well, I can be flexible. I know sometimes Friday night she has this going on. I'm willing to take her then. And the judge and the mediator saw that he was just a nice, fair person, right? And judges love that. They're so tired of the catfighting, right? So my client won everything he wanted, right?
Nice.
And his ex just hurt her own credibility in front of the judge. Right. So that's how I do it. I coach people up and talk to them about this and acknowledge their emotions. And I know it's difficult, it's painful, it's awful. I know the other side, your ex did this, they did that. And, they're a troubled person.
Yep.
right? Have some empathy for them. It's like, think of what they're going through, the emotions that are churning through them, waking up in anger, not being able to sleep well and everything. And what we want is for everybody to be more peaceful and kind. That's the ultimate goal, right? So I tell them, the more you are like that, you can pull them into that. You can pull them into a more reasonable position and tone down the harsh emotions. I've seen that happen over and over and over and over again. Like I mentioned before, emotions are contagious.
Oh, yeah.
One person is kind. One person does a kind act. There's been research recently that when we do something kind for somebody, we release serotonin, which is the happy molecule, right? But when people watch somebody do an act of kindness, it releases serotonin. So it's very neurological, physical. It's a thing. You're in court, you're kind, you're empathetic, you're honest. The jury just starts loving you, right? They feel, I like this person. I don't know why I like this person, but this feels good. I like the way they talk, right? And the same with judges. They're very sensitive to, the emotional tone, and they're looking for who's credible, who do I want to win. So it is. I really want to emphasize that it's a superpower.
So you've mentioned a couple of times where you've trained your clients to XYZ. Out of curiosity, what's the success rate of that? Because not everyone's trainable, right?
Almost all my clients are trainable. I had one that turned out to be an alcoholic and anger issues that he was kind of hiding and everything. I usually don't take clients like that. So most people find me through word of mouth, because people who know I'm a holistic lawyer or who have worked with me or been my clients, they love it. They go, wow. When I first tell people, it's like, wow, what is a holistic lawyer? And people love that. So I've mostly had word of mouth. And so I attract people who are already in that vein. They're more compassionate, they're nicer people, they have a spiritual life, they're meditators, whatever, or just nice, decent people. And they'd rather work with an attorney who's a nice person. And once they learn about how I work and how and why it's effective, they can just take a breath, right? They feel
more confident.
Yeah. I've heard so many times, I'm so glad I found you.
Yeah. And that's got to be a good feeling when you hear that, right?
Oh, it's great. Yeah.
Interesting. So out of curiosity, what's the website where people can get a hold of you if they want to check you out and see what you're all about?
Yeah, my website is peaceinthelaw.com. PEACE.
Peaceinthelaw.com. I will put a link to that in the show notes. I will also link out to your LinkedIn, because you and I are connected on LinkedIn, in case anyone has any other things to talk about. If they're holistic and they want to understand what you're all about. Now, do you just practice in California?
As an attorney, I can only practice in California. As a coach, I can work anywhere. So I've had clients in multiple other states where I just help them find an attorney or coach and guide them through the emotional, how to persuade a judge, how to prepare for a hearing, how to prepare for a deposition, those sorts of general educational things.
Yeah, we didn't touch, I'm glad you said that, because we did not talk a lot about the coaching aspect of your business. So if it's an attorney out there that's having problems with a particular client and they want to say, hey, just speak to him and this person will calm you down, is that the service, or what is that?
I can do that. Yeah. Attorneys can bring me into a case to work with a client who's some people are not going to do well in court or deposition, right? That is one of the hugest things. I think the statistic is something like 90% of cases are won or lost in deposition. It's how you show up the other attorney, if they see you're calm and confident, you pause, you breathe, you think, you give limited, focused, correct answers, all of that, they go back to their client and say, this person, this woman, this guy is really good. They're going to be a good witness. We should settle the case, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you're over emotional, you're not thinking well, you blurt out answers, you make mistakes, you make false statements, you've just given the other side ammunition, right?
Mm-hmm.
So coaching up for deposition is one of the most important things I do. Also coaching for hearings and for trial, arbitrations, and mediation also. Yeah.
Do you have a separate website for that?
No, it's all under Peace in the Law.
It's all in the same one. Okay, got it.
And mainly my Peace in the Law site is now for my coaching. I don't advertise as a lawyer there anymore. I just I have my few long-term clients or old clients and referrals now and then. So I'm an attorney, very part-time right now. More writing a book.
Gotcha.
And, coaching.
So
teaching.
we all know where your passion is now, Duane. You've just exposed it. Anyway, this has been great, Duane. Is there anything I did not ask you that you think would benefit the audience?
I'd say, there are a couple books out there on holistic law, how to be a holistic lawyer. I'm not remembering the name of the main author, sort of presenter in the field right now, a nice woman. But you can get a book on how to be a holistic attorney. And then also it's, attorneys to move into this way of being just need to shift that attitude. And I think understanding the power of it, the power of being a decent person. And most attorneys actually are. They're just still caught up in that paradigm of win, loss, fight, attack the other side, tear the other side down.
Mm-hmm.
So an attorney can be a very decent person in general, but then they get into their lawyer shoes, their tie, and they go into court. They can turn into combative. Just to work on that. I want to say one other thing about, you asked earlier about if this is weak. It's absolutely not. I was in litigation some years ago with a really jerk attorney who was just manipulative and would try to, just use every trick and manipulation in the book against witnesses in deposition or trial. And at one point, he produced a document. There was a witness that was going to be a witness for my client. And the document had a paragraph from this guy's website and then another paragraph from some other location that was attacking my, like slandering my client. And
Right.
He was trying to get my client, that witness, to own it and say, this is your website, right? This was on your website. And the guy's going, no, this isn't. No, I don't know that second paragraph. And the attorney was really pushing. And we found out that the attorney or his office had put those two together intentionally to try to get that into evidence. So this guy was just such a jerk in deposition. We had yelling contests, and I would yell at the top of my voice. But what I call it is a clean power. I would like out yell him, and I was winning the arguments.
Right.
He was bringing up really stupid objections and stuff. So I would yell at him, but then I'd just go back to my calm self and speak to him in a friendly voice. And a minute or two later, we're talking like we're just, colleagues, just attorneys there doing our thing. So there's a way to use power, but to use it in a clean way. It doesn't have that emotional, attacking, tearing down kind of energy. It's just boom.
Yeah.
So I want attorneys to know that there's definitely a softness and emotional intelligence about this, but when you need the power, it can still be there.
Now, do you train attorneys to do that?
I haven't yet. Many people have asked me, like, this book I'm writing is for people, it's for everyday people, and attorneys can read it too. It will be helpful for them. But I've decided to work with people who are dealing with a legal system that's very oppressive and scary for them,
Yeah.
to help them through it. And also, the title of my book, the present title anyway, is called The Law of Love.
Got it.
And it has two main sections. One is the state of current law, including the bitter, angry, combative, evasive, dishonest parts of it, and the movement toward more mediation and collaboration and restorative justice and attorneys meditating more, all of that. And then the other part is, what would law look like if we were all just basically decent, intelligent, basically kind people to each other, right? What would it look like? Then it's just a framework for how to work things out, right? There's disagreements, or you look, the whole history of law and how judges have determined things in the past, what's fair, what principles come into play, and making a determination. All of that is still valuable. You just cut out the unnecessary anger and bitterness.
Do you happen to have a tentative release date of the book? Or
I'm aiming for this fall. I'm working on it now, so hopefully that'll be done by then.
Awesome. Well, much success to that. We'll be looking out to it. Please reach out to me on LinkedIn when it's there. I'll be happy to promote it for you.
Great.
Anyway, that's all I have for you today. Thanks for coming. Thanks for accepting my invite to be on the show. I always love to interview lawyers just like yourself, or even people who are exiting the practice and maybe helping other people in the practice. It always helps as well. So with that, I'm going to put an end to this episode. This has been Frank Deming, the local business guy, and you've just been blessed by the great Duane Light. Take care, everyone. Until next week.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Marketing Solutions for Local Law Firms, the podcast that provides you with all the latest digital marketing tools, tips, and strategies you will need to implement in order to stay ahead of your competition. If you would like to know more about the topic we discussed on the show today, reach out to Frank and his team at 888-416-7752 and schedule a discovery call with one of the marketing consultants. If you'd like to be a guest on our show, send an email to podcast@lbmsllc.com and we will put you on the schedule. With that being said, until next week, make it a successful digital marketing day. Peace out.